Hi there, and welcome to the What's New webinar for the latest release of Mission Control. So version 1.52 is going to be released on Friday, the 1st of November. So what we're going to do is just take a quick look through all of the key new features, and then we'll jump in and take a look around in further detail. So what's new? So main things that are coming in. So the major features, we've got a new component called the Resource Reassignment Wizard. We've made a number of Gantt Chart enhancements, as well as adding in some Dependency Enforcement. We've made some modifications to the expenses, which we'll cover off later, and also added in some relative date filters onto the action pad and whiteboard, and then a few minor enhancements around the time tracking, program planner, and so on. So let's take a closer look. So the resource assignment component basically allows you to do mass transfer of ownership of records within a project. So you can quickly reassign anything that is owned by anyone, where they might be the project owner, a milestone owner, the action owner, a checklist item owner, or a contributor. So the Gantt chart, we've made a number of different enhancements, primarily from customer feedback. So we've added in the ability to persistently remember whether you want to collapse or expand the milestones and the actions. We've also added in the ability, so you could also always add in custom fields at the action level. We've now added in that same functionality for the project, milestone, and checklist item level as well. The Gantt chart component can now be added onto any parent page. So if your project relates to an account, a contact, an opportunity, a program, or any other custom lookup field that you've added into the system, you're going to be able to drop the Gantt chart component onto those pages, and it will load in all projects related to that record. So as if you're working on large projects, you've got the ability now to actually have the header, so all of the time frame of the project that will float at the top, no matter where you are in terms of scrolling down. We've also got a button on there that will allow you to jump quickly to today. We've made some really cool enhancements to the scaling of the time frame. You can also quickly identify now where an action has contributors. We've added in the ability to drag and drop to sort the records within the Gantt chart. Another request from customers was the ability to actually change the colors of the actions based on the status of them. So we've added that in as well. And some customers asked for the ability to disable the inline edit feature, so that's now controllable by a setting on the Gantt chart as well. So not necessarily an issue for people using trackpads, but where you're using a mouse, there was some people having issues on doing a horizontal scroll on the Gantt chart. So previously you would have to scroll all the way down to find the scroll bar at the bottom, and then move to the right or the left, and then scroll back up to where you were. Now what you can do is actually click anywhere inside the Gantt and just drag to the left or the right with your mouse, and that will scroll for you. So on the standalone Gantt chart, we've also added in the ability to have multiple filters. Rather than just filtering on one aspect, like a project name or a category, you can now filter on multiple aspects. And from the project overview page, if you're looking at the Gantt, you're going to be able to quickly open that up into the standalone Gantt chart if you're wanting to be able to sort of access more real estate on the screen. And then the final one is the ability to actually view and edit the entire record. So previously you were contained to certain fields that we had included in the component, but obviously customers add their own custom fields to those objects. So as well as still having access to those components, you can also now access the entire record page layout as well. So dependencies, when a few releases ago, we added in the ability to have multiple different dependency relationships, and that ultimately rendered a validation rule that we had in the package redundant. So that validation rule basically used to allow you to enforce that the parent record had to be completed if it was a finish to start, before you could start the child. So obviously you've got you've got multiple different options now. You can have milestones or actions as parents. You can have finish to start or start to start. So we've got some logic in there now that will allow you to enforce that as well. So on a finish to start, you've got to make sure the parent is complete. On a start to start, the parent must not be planned. So we'll take a closer look at that when we get into the detail. So expenses, so again, few custom requests came in really just to have the ability to be able to track the tax component of an expense being claimed. So we've added in some fields and they've been made available to each of the expense creation components within the system. And again, this one was requested by customers, and obviously having seen the request, we were like, yes, this makes so much sense. So the ability to apply a relative date filter on either the whiteboard or the action pad. So you regularly filter those pages down to say, show me what I've got to be working on this month, but those dates were fixed dates, so you had to go in each week or month and change those dates if you're moving into the next period. So similar to report filters within Salesforce, we've added in the ability to have a relative date filter. So you, instead of using fixed dates, you can now say, show me everything that I should be working on this month or next month and so on. So then a few minor enhancements. So we've added in the ability to see when you're, so if you are using the start stop time tracker, you've got the ability now to actually see the time that you started the clock when you're trying to stop it. So you can see how long it's been running for. The program planner, we've made a few adjustments to the columns, giving you the ability to add in or remove columns such as backlog and priority backlog, and the project builder. So ultimately, we've just added 3 new fields onto the action. So if you are building out requirements and you're putting in things like the requirement notes, recommendations, benefits, and so on, those values from the requirement will actually be added into the fields on the action when you're dragging those over from the project builder. And one final minor enhancement is really just about housekeeping. So if you're doing a like a time and materials invoice, so if you've raised your billing event, you've got your billing event item, and then any time logs or expenses that are related to that will be marked as having been invoiced. So previously, if you ended up deleting the billing event or the billing event item, those time logs or expenses still said that they were invoiced. So now there's logic in the system that when you delete the billing event or the billing event item, that checkbox on the time log or expense will be set back to false, so they can be captured in the next round of billing. Okay, so that's a high-level overview of what we've got. So what we're going to do now is jump in and take a closer look at some of these new features. Okay, so first of all, we're going to take a look at the resource reassignment wizard. So this is a tool that lets you reassign work from one set of resources to another in a very quick process. So just to put this into context where it might be helpful, so I've got a template project here where I've got a template to build out websites. Now, on my template, I don't want to specify named resources because I don't necessarily know who's going to be doing the work. I just know what type of person is going to be doing that work. So you can see here I've got placeholders for project managers, designers, and so on. So as I'm going, when I then want to clone this to actually spin up a new project, I want to be able to quickly reassign that rather than having to go through each individual record manually. So what I'm going to do is now just jump over to an opportunity, and I'm actually going to be using our opportunity generation method to automatically create that project based on that template. So now that you can see that the project's been created, we're going to jump in and we'll see that everything is still assigned to those placeholder records. So rather than having to go through and edit each individual record manually, what I can do is come up to the new component, which you access via this button here. Now you'll need to add this button onto your page layout, but if I click this reassignment link, that's going to take me through to the reassignment component. Now what this is showing me is everyone that currently has some involvement in the project, and I can see whether they're a project owner, a milestone owner, whether they own any actions, whether they own any checklist items, and whether they own any contributors. So what I can do from here is actually say, right, so whoever is going to be my project manager, I can reassign right across all of those levels. I can reassign all of this work off to named individuals. So that's what I'm going to do here. Just going to start putting in people's names. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to click save in a moment, but just to explain why there are some gaps here. So not everyone obviously is a project owner. So there's only one person assigned as the project owner, which is why there's only a lookup field for that one record. You'll see here, obviously, there's only one person that's owning milestone records. Now, this developer placeholder has some checklist items, but they don't own any actions or contributors, which is why they're not appearing there either. So you're literally just able to identify who's doing what on the project and do a mass reassignment. So I'm going to click on save now. So then when we start looking at the project again, that we can see all of those placeholders have been replaced with named individuals. So we've been very quickly able to reassign the entire project. So hope you get some good use out of that new component. So we're going to take a look at the various enhancements that we've applied to the Gantt chart in this release now. So the first one we want to show you is the ability to persistently remember whether you want to expand or collapse the rows. So you've always been able to actually use these buttons here to choose whether you would like to actually collapse the actions. You could collapse the milestones as well. So now what that will do is it will persistently remember what your preference is. So if I navigate away from that record and then I come back to it, you'll see it's remembered that I was previously hiding the actions. Now, if I want to change that, I simply click that again, then the actions are visible, and that again is now my persistent setting. So one of the other things we've added is the ability to add some more settings. So you are always able to add custom fields at the action level. But now if you go to the mission control console on the control pad, you'll see that we've added in within the Gantt chart settings section the ability to specify fields at the project, milestone, action, and checklist item level. So I'm just going to specify some fields here, and then we'll go and take a look at them being visible on the Gantt chart. So now that I've made those choices, I click on save, and then that will be remembered. So now I can go and make those available on the Gantt chart. So just going to come back here and refresh this page. So now what I can do here is actually click on the settings tab, and that will give me the ability to add in my custom fields. So we'll need to refresh the Gantt again. So you can now see that I've got new custom fields available at the project, the milestone, the action, and the checklist item when I'm viewing all four. And we can see which fields are being displayed for each level. Now, the other thing we've added into the settings is the ability to hide the inline edit. So you can obviously turn on or off the inline edit feature by using this pencil icon. Now, if you don't want to use that feature, which some customers have reported that they don't want to, you can actually disable that on these settings as well. So you can actually just tick that box, update the Gantt, and then you'll see that the placeholder, the pencil placeholder is gone, and then you won't be able to use the inline edit feature. So if you want to revert any of those settings, it's just a case of ticking the box, setting them back to false and updating that. What we've also added in is the ability to look at the Gantt chart from any parent record of the project. So what I'm going to do is actually just jump through onto my opportunity that I have. So you'll see I've got an opportunity for a website development for Quicksilver. I can see there's a project related to this. So what I've been able to do is actually modify my page and just add this Gantt tab. And I've been able to drop on the Gantt Lightning component. So now what I can do is see the related projects right on the opportunity record. Now, just to walk you through quickly doing that, I'm just going to edit my page. So first of all, what I did was add a new tab called Gantt. And then if I click onto that, what I did was drag in the Lightning component. So if I scroll down, you'll see there is a Lightning component called Lightning Gantt. So you drag that onto there, and then when you drop that on, you just want to specify the height there as well. Ultimately, once you've done that, you would save the page, and then that will be added in to where you can have that visibility of the Gantt directly on that opportunity page. So just to reiterate, you'll be able to add that Gantt chart component onto any record that is a parent of the project. So things like the account, the contact, the opportunity, the program, and any other custom lookup field that you've added to the project object. Okay, so I'm just going to jump back onto this Gantt chart. So a couple of other requests we've had from customers is the ability to log time directly from the Gantt chart, and also have the ability to edit the entire record. So if you edit an existing action, it has always shown you the action component here, which gives you some of the key fields that are relevant to keeping an action up to date. So where a customer may have added in custom fields onto the action object, it was never possible to actually give them access to include those fields on this component. However, what we've got now is the ability to access the entire record. So clicking that record detail tab, you can see I've now got access to the full the full action page layout. So if I need to edit anything, I can do that from here. What I can also do is log time from here as well. So if I click onto my log time component, this will obviously look familiar because it's the same component that you can access in numerous other places. So just by double clicking onto the action, clicking onto the log time, I can go and log time against that action without having to leave the Gantt chart. You also have the ability to edit the full record for all of the other levels in the project as well. So if I click onto the project, I can access the record detail for the project. If I click onto the milestone, I can access the full record for the milestone as well. So we've also had a request from some customers wanting a different way of identifying the status of actions within a Gantt. So right now the colors obviously default is green, and then if you mark the action as high priority, it will be flagged up as red. If you mark it as amber, it will be flagged up as, sorry, if you mark it as medium, it will be flagged up as amber. So we've added in the ability on the Gantt chart settings section of the control pad on the mission control console to specify the color based on the status value of the action. So what you can do here is just put in a hexadecimal code reference like this, which you can identify from something like a Google search, and then put in the custom colors that you want. So I'm just going to add some colors here. So it always needs to have the hash at the start, and then you put in your references, and then it's just giving you an indication of what that color is going to be. Now, once I've done that, I can click on save. So they get saved. Now, if I go back to my Gantt and just refresh that, so you'll see how now all of my actions are being displayed based on the status value of that action. So again, if you want to revert that, it would just be a case of removing these values. Once again, clicking on save. And again, refresh that page. And you'll see they've reverted back to the defaults. Okay, so I'm just going to jump over to another project here. So this is a bit longer. So one of the things by default, the Gantt chart loads up to show you the start of the project. Now, you might be well through this project and you don't want to have to scroll each time to get over to today. So what you can actually do is just click on this button here, and that will automatically jump you right to today. So you can obviously scroll backwards if you need to, but if you need to come back to today, it's just a quick click of that button and that will do that for you. Now, the other thing is, previously, when you had a large project and you were scrolling down, this whole section would disappear further up the page. Now you can see, no matter how big my project is, the actual, the time frame and all the buttons will float at the top, so I've always got access to them. Now, the other thing that has been requested is some greater flexibility around the scaling. So again, they're not new buttons, it's just new functionality. So the plus and the minus zoom buttons allowed you to basically just make the columns narrower or wider. Now what we've done is actually made them dynamically change the scale that you're looking at. So you can see I'm currently looking at days. So if I click that once, it's going to remove the days, and now I'm looking at a week timeline. If I click it again, I'm now looking at months. If I click it again, I'm now looking at quarters and years. And then if I click it once more, I'm right out to an annual view. So for larger projects, you're going to be able to keep everything in view without having to scroll to the right or to the left to see everything that you want to see. Obviously, you're just clicking it to get back to the original settings there. Now, the other thing is now again, this isn't too applicable for people using trackpads, but for someone using a mouse, what they would have to previously do is if they wanted to scroll right or left, they would have to first of all come down to the bottom of the Gantt to get to the scroll bar here, and then go back up to where they were. Now, what you can do is actually just use your mouse button to click and hold the Gantt. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'm just able to drag from moving my mouse left to right. And that will allow me from wherever I am to actually swipe left or right without having to go right down to the bottom to find that scroll bar. Another feature we've added in is the ability to quickly identify where an action might have contributors. So obviously, familiar icon there lets us know that we've got contributors on this action. Now, if you want to find out who that is, it's a feature that's always been there, but you can double click into the action and then hover over that icon, and that will show you the people that are actually contributing to that action. Another feature that we've added in is the ability to sort the records just by dragging and dropping. So rather than having to double click on each one and change the sort order, what you can now do is actually just drag and drop this and move it from from wherever it is to the new location. So you'll see there, I'm going to let that go, and that will automatically move that client approval above the design UI. So you can drag and drop stuff to wherever you want it. So I might want to actually have my build milestone above my design milestone. So you can quickly drag and drop to change that sort order, and then obviously just click save to commit those changes to the project. Now, the other thing we've got is the ability to jump through to the standalone page. So rather than having to just work on this smaller amount of screen space, I can click on this link here, and that's going to take me straight through to the standalone Gantt chart, where I now have much more space available to me. So really just a bit of a time saver if you're wanting to get through to that page. Now, whilst we're here, I'm going to talk about the final enhancement to the Gantt chart, which is the ability to apply multiple filters. So what we can do here is click on the filter button and pick and choose what what we want to look at. Now, we've always had the ability to choose from from these various options, but we could only ever do one at a time. So if we want to make a selection based on project names, but we also want to go and select something like category, for example, we can now tick this box, and that will allow us to apply multiple filters. So now that I've got my my project selected, I could jump over and say I also want to base on it on category. I now only want to look at these values. So once that's done, I click on load, and that will load in the various projects that match both of those filters. Now, just to let you know, applying multiple filters won't be persistent. So the next time you come back to the Gantt chart, you would need to reapply the filter. Existing single filters do remain persistent. Okay, so we're going to look at the new feature that we're adding in around dependency enforcement. So as I mentioned earlier, with the introduction of the multiple dependencies, the legacy validation rule that prevented child actions from starting if the parent action was not yet complete ceased working really. So now what we've done is added in some additional dependency enforcement logic to accommodate for both start to start and finish to start dependencies. So this logic is actually controlled by a new field on the project object. So I'm just going to click on edit here to show you. So this is a field that's been added in as part of this release, but you'll need to add this to your page layout. So ultimately, if you want to enforce dependencies, you've got the ability to control it at the project level. So I've set this field to true. So now dependencies are going to be enforced within this project. So two scenarios. Obviously, I've got a finish to start, and I've also got a start to start relationship here. So the logic will say if the action is a child in a start to start relationship, ensure that that there are no parent records, whether it's a milestone or an action, have a status of planned. So I won't be able to move this into in progress if this action is planned. The other option is the other scenario is where it's a finish to start. I won't be able to move this one to in progress unless this is complete. So you can see there I've got a finish to start relationship, and I've also got a start to start relationship between these two actions here. So what I'm going to do is just jump over to my whiteboard just to show you. So I've got my cut. So this is my parent in the finish to start, and this is my parent in the start to start. So what's going to happen is if I drag this over, previously I would have been able to allow this to be moved to in progress. Now that I've got my dependencies being enforced, when I actually drag this over, it's going to give me a notification that I can't do that. So that reverts that back and prevents me from moving that child action to in progress because the parent has not yet been completed. Now, the other scenario is the start to start. And again, because this hasn't been started, I can't move this one. So once I drag that over, I'm going to get that same notification letting me know that I can't update that status. Whereas if this action was complete, I would then be able to move this action to in progress without receiving any errors. Okay, so in terms of expenses, so we've had customers say that they have a need to, as well as logging the total amount of the expense, they have a need to record the tax amount component of that expense as well. So we've basically added in a new field called tax amount. So you can put in your value of 200, and then you can say of that, this amount was, this amount was a tax component. Now, what happens in the background? There's an additional field that will then calculate the X tax total amount. So ultimately, the net amount minus the tax. So that field has been added. So you'll need to add that to your page layout. But if I just jump onto an existing expense there, you can see I've put in my total amount claimed, I've put in my tax amount, and then the X tax amount is being calculated for me. And this is all being factored into any billing event logic that you're used to using as well. Okay, so the final major enhancement is the relative date filters. So this is available on both the action pad and on the whiteboard. So obviously using the custom filters here, I can click through and apply filters. So obviously you're used to seeing this, and what you're used to seeing is the ability to put in actual dates here. Now what you've got is the ability to toggle that over to use a relative date. So instead of using that that specific date value, I can just say I want to see value any action where the start date is actually this month. So if I apply that filter, that's going to actually filter down and show me everything that has a start date contained in this month. So that gives me a more dynamic, ongoing filter that I can keep applied to my action pad or my whiteboard. So thanks for taking the time to run through that demo with me. I hope you find those enhancements valuable. So when are we getting this pushed out to everyone? So if we take a look at the release schedule, so as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be available on the App Exchange as of Friday, 1st of November 2019. So as usual, what you can do is go to the App Exchange, click the Get It Now button, and you can manually upgrade that yourselves. On the 9th of November, we'll be automatically upgrading all sandbox orgs. And then on the 16th of November, we'll be automatically upgrading that to all of the production orgs as well. So, final thing to say is obviously thank you for your time. Really appreciate you looking through all of this with us. Again, I hope you're excited to see these new features, and we look forward to working on the next one for you. Thanks for your time. Bye.